Hello and welcome to today's webinar on the journey to continuous delivery, unleashing the power of your tool chain. I'm Rupert, Head of Sales and Marketing at Midvision. I'm joined today by Richard Bettison, CTO and co-founder of Midvision, Mark Pritchard, Senior Director of Product Management at CloudBees, and Alex Manley, VP Product Development at Midvision. So what are we going to cover today? Well, in today's session, we're going to start off with a brief overview of continuous delivery, some of the benefits organizations are seeing today, a bit about application fingering, and we'll leave you with some key takeaways. We'll talk briefly about RapidDeploy, some key concepts of the technology and how RapidDeploy underpins continuous delivery. We'll talk about RapidDeploy and its integration with CloudBees, giving you an overview of the RapidDeploy plugin for Jenkins. And lastly, we'll finish off with a demo which takes you through a CloudBees pipeline to manage continuous delivery using the RapidDeploy plugin. Now, before I pass you over to Richard, Mark, and Alex, I'd like to cover off a couple of housekeeping points. Today's webinar will last for around 45 minutes. The session is being recorded and a link to the recorded session, including slides, will be sent to you by email after this webinar. If you have any questions, please use the questions section on the GoToWebinar panel on your screen. We're not going to be answering questions live during today's sessions as we really want to keep it to a tight 45 minutes, but we will take all your questions, comments and feedback away and get back to you very shortly after this presentation. So let me pass you now over to Mark Pritchard, Senior Director of Product Management at CloudBees.
Thanks very much, Rupert. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Perfect.
Let me just bring the presentation up. There we go. And as Rupert said, I'm Mark Pritchard. I'm Senior Director of Product Management here at CloudBees. And obviously CloudBees, as you'll hear later on, we are very much the specialist in continuous integration and continuous delivery using the Jenkins continuous integration engine. So before we dive into product, I'd like to just talk a little bit about continuous delivery, and obviously this is a very hot subject in the industry at the moment. I really, it is the core of the sort of new DevOps vision, and I think the goal that everybody has is to achieve complete automation of that release process, all the way through from the moment where the developer commits something into source code. And of course, as you'll see, when we start talking about continuous delivery, it's not just the traditional code. We're actually talking about committing configuration changes. But any time somebody changes anything, then we need to have complete automation and traceability all the way through to that application being deployed into the target environment. And there are certain key features of this. Obviously, there are lots of ways to achieve continuous delivery depending on the tools that you're using, the environment or the infrastructure you're deploying into, and the sort of application you're deploying. But there are certain key features that I think are common across all the different approaches. One is the use of pipelines to chain together elements of the deployment process. We'll see some of that in the demo that we're going to do in a minute, but we're talking about chaining together the action to actually do automated build test of the source code for the application. We're talking about process elements such as the provisioning of the environment, that's what using virtualized or cloud environments, and the steps to create those will need to be part of the continuous delivery process, and the most importantly, of course, the deployment of the application, the configuration of that deployment also needs to be one of the elements of that pipeline. software at all times. You'll see, I think, throughout the topic of continuous delivery is very closely aligned to sort of agile style software delivery processes. The goal is to be able to do very frequent, regular releases of the software rather than sort of large waterfall-based processes where there are long gaps, long shelves for release. The idea is to be able to do these releases much faster, and of course that means you get all the benefits of immediate feedback, you get continuous improvement of the deployed code base. But to do that, you need to have these processes and DevOps in place that will allow you to have your software in a release ready state pretty much at all times, so that you can push it down. As we've mentioned, it's not just about the source code in a traditional sense. We now start to think of configuration as code, so you're thinking of your deployment steps, the environment configuration, like Chef and Puppet. These are all equally important for the continuous delivery vision as the actual source code that gets compiled into your application. Configuration changes need to be managed, they need to be versioned, you need to have them traceable back to wherever the change was made, and that's all part of continuous delivery as well.
The agenda slide.
Why do we do it? Well, I think that the real driver is to be able to do more rapid, more regular releases. We need to be able to get functionality out into production more quickly, but you can't do that if you take a traditional waterfall approach and just try to squeeze it. As people have found in the past, what that leads to is essentially loss of quality, and the whole goal here is to actually increase the quality and to reduce the number of defects that we produce. So we're really trying to mitigate the risks involved in the software development process. And by setting up this continuous delivery pipeline where we have traceability all the way through from the change that was made either to the environment configuration or the application code itself, all the way through deployment, you have the ability to have these things run as continuous pipeline. And the important point to note on this diagram is that, of course, you have the automated test which will cause that pipeline to fail and stop, and therefore prevent that release from going forward if any stage of this process of the pipeline fails to pass your test. So again, you see one of the key features here of continuous delivery is the automated testing that is necessary for the process. Another key step in the continuous delivery methodology or approach is this ability to trace back any changes that are made right back to the individual commit or the update to the source code or configuration repository that triggered it. So in this sense, this is a concept that Gartner talked about in terms of application fingerprinting. Those of you who are from the Jenkins world will be very familiar with the concept of fingerprinting. We do that today and have done for a long time in terms of taking sort of fingerprints and patches of source code artifacts so that we can go all the way back from a deployed artifact, let's say on a war file or something like that. We can go all the way back to the source code commit that triggered the build that resulted in that artifact. But once we start to look at continuous delivery, you can extend that concept to include not just the source code, but the configuration of the environment you're deploying into, and also the process, the steps that you went through to create the environment and to deploy the application. That's the process element here. That's the sort of larger vision that we're talking about, the traceability of your entire environment. So the key things that we're going to be looking at, and I'd like you to try and bear these in mind and relate to them as we go through the demonstration, we're looking for complete automation of the whole release management cycle and driving driving that, we need a robust and extensible orchestration engine, and Jenkins is an ideal engine to do that. We'll have a look in a minute at all the things that we can do with Jenkins to build out that continuous delivery picture. And see those pipelines, you'll see when Carolee does this demonstration later on, you'll see the way that we've broken down a complex deployment task into a number of stages, and those are tied together as build pipelines. And that, I think most commentators, most experts in this field believe that is the first step towards continuous delivery, is to start putting in place those build pipelines. You'll see again that we're going to be creating environments as those are needed, so that as applications flow through their different stages of the life cycle, build, test, stage, releasing to go into the release environments, those will automatically move through. The environments will be created and provisioned as needed when the applications are ready to deploy. So, in terms of CloudBees, I mean, we are the Jenkins experts. We have Jose Kawaguchi, who started the Jenkins project, all of years ago, at the time I was Flow, many of the Jenkins project are on the staff of CloudBees. Jenkins, for anyone who's not familiar with it, is far and away the most widely used open source integration framework out there. We have a huge, very active community that's contributing plugins. Several plugins come out every week. There's nearly 1,000 plugins now available, and that's a key strength of Jenkins that makes it that orchestration engine that drives the continuous delivery process. And let's just take a very quick look at what that looks like. So, as CloudBees, we have platform as a service. We support Jenkins deployed on-premise or private cloud environment. We also have a fully hosted Jenkins delivered as a service in the public cloud, and it's possible to combine these two approaches. That's a common theme again in delivery, is we either combine the sort of release automation with the use of as a service model and platform as a service. That's actually what we're going to do today in our demonstration. So we can deploy all the way through. We can have Jenkins managing its very familiar, build, test, development cycle, and then we use Jenkins to dependent on the results of the test, pushing through the staging environment, and we can also go through the deployment as well. And as you'll see, we have a huge ecosystem of partners and also of technologies that have plugins that can be configured as part of the Jenkins environment, so that you have this ability to deploy both your test, your stage, and also your production environments into both public cloud or on-premise environments with a whole range of different deployment targets. But what we're going to focus on for this webinar is a very common pattern that seems to be emerging for many people as an effective first way into the continuous delivery methodology or mindset, and that is to use platform as a service with Jenkins running as a hosted service in the cloud, but doing a deployment to an on-premise environment. And in this case, obviously, we're going to be doing this through the type integration we have with efficient RapidDeploy product. They have a very rich Jenkins plugin which handles that integration, which will do a lot of the environment provisioning and deployment. And for the example we're going to look at, for example, we're going to be deploying into a very complex Websphere application server environment. So without more ado, let me hand over to Richard, who's going to say a little bit about RapidDeploy and set up the scenario for the demonstration we're going to show you.
Hello everybody. Hopefully you can see my screen. So, yes, my name is Richard Bettison, and I'm the CTO of Midvision and a co-founder of Midvision. Midvision provides a leading deployment automation solution. RapidDeploy, it's our principal business, is doing automated deployments. The product was initially developed about 10 years ago in a Tier 1 bank. It's still being used within that bank today, and yeah, they're continually asking us to improve it and make it better. We have a number of global customers with multiple industry sectors, so we commercialize the product and we released it to multiple products. Sorry, I think people weren't able to see my screen. Sorry, it should now be visible. So,
You're not here as a presenter.
It just did. It just said present it. I just said show my screen. So we have strong partnerships made with around database vendors such as IBM and Oracle, and we're recognised by Gartner as a leading vendor in the application release automation space. So, what is RapidDeploy? So RapidDeploy, we really are focused on deployment automation, but we also do provisioning of the base software. So in the case that we would show you today, we can provision all the Websphere cells, we can federate the cells, etc., to create a complete end-to-end Websphere environment. We also do deploy the configuration, we deploy the code, and that is what we specialize in. We have a rich set of plugins, toolset plugins for integration with SCM tools. Today we're looking at Subversion, but it could be Git. We have plugins to artifact repositories. Today, actually, we're just going to be writing to a file system, but it could just as easily be Maven or Nexus or Artifactory. Obviously, we have build integration, so today we're integrating with Jenkins, but we do have integration to other products. We have reporting tool integration, and we integrate with a wide range of enterprise products from IBM, from Oracle, from Red Hat, etc. The tool has a range of ways of accessing it. We have inbound and outbound APIs. We have a web UI, which is what you'd expect from a tool like ours. We also have a JMX interface, so you can write your own scripts to call RapidDeploy to do a number of things via shell or Perl scripts or whatever. And we have web services so that you can make inbound or outbound calls. And today we're going to be using a web service call from Jenkins, from our plugins, into RapidDeploy. And really our main strength is we cater for complex heterogeneous enterprise environments. So we came out of, as I said, a Tier 1 bank. They have very complicated environments. So this product was built on very complicated environments and supports a broad range of technologies. So we're not just today we're just going to show a WebSphere deployment to a WebSphere cell, but really that WebSphere cell might be part of a much more complicated environment with message queues, message broker, web services all over the place, and back-end databases, and all of those can be deployed as part of a rollout. And RapidDeploy is built on Java and is a plugin-based framework which can be easily extended. Many of our customers extend it by writing their own plugins. And we will continue to deliver plugins into the future. So why is RD important to continuous delivery? I'm just going to skip through this slide. We have all of these plugins here that you can see, that you can read about later. Today we're going to be looking at WebSphere. And one of the areas I wanted to mention is messaging. We're very strong on MQ, Message Broker, and Data Power, which is very, very useful because I don't believe there's anything else in this space. So looking at the Jenkins plugin itself, so on the CloudBees server, we have two possible plugins that you can use. There's a Create Package plugin, which creates a Midvision package, and a Deploy Package plugin. Both of them communicate with the Midvision framework server using a RESTful API. The Create Package plugin then goes off, creates the package, which is basically a combination of the EAR file or JAR file or WAR file, which is the output of your continuous integration, and it puts that together into a package which can be deployed into any of your environments. And that means that it can then add in all of the configuration required to completely build or update your target environment. And then we have a Deploy Package plugin, which again makes a RESTful API call to Midvision and uses the package that you've just created and selects a particular target environment and goes on and deploys to that target environment using either SSH or our remote agent. So what we're going to look at today is some development there's some pipelines using continuous delivery. And the pipeline is really from development through to test, through approval, and then through to production. So if we take a little bit more detailed look at that, we're going to simulate a change to some code. We're going to check it into our SCM repository. That's going to kick off an automated build. That's going to have a unit test that occurs as part of that build. If that's successful, we're going to call our plugins to package that built code and configuration and then deploy that code out to our target environment and then additionally perform an integration test. Now if that test passes, there'll be an automatic test approval. If it fails, then it will stop there. But if it passes, there'll be an automatic test approval and that will deploy to the test environment. And after that test environment, there'll be another automated test, but we will have to actually log in, have a look at the application, make sure it's right, and make a human approval step before we finally deploy it into production. Okay, and this is what this looks like in CloudBees. We've got 4 CloudBees jobs. The first one is that one that's going to develop the code, deliver to SCM, do the automated build, unit test, and deploy to our development environment, and then run the integration test. The second one is going to run assuming that first test completes, so there'll be an auto approval. We'll then deploy into the test environment, and then there'll be a further acceptance test. We'll then log in and have a look at the application to make sure it's working. We'll then go into this control job, and we'll say, yeah, that's fine. We approve that to be released into production. Then finally, we'll deploy to the production service. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do now is step out and go straight in and have a look at the demo. The first thing we're going to look at is the CloudBees dashboard. So here are the 4 projects. I'm just going to refresh the page. So first of all, I'm going to go into the dev project. We're going to go and have a quick look at configuration. So it's a standard Jenkins project. So we're using source code management against this URL using Subversion. We're doing polling the SCM every 2 minutes. We're doing a clean and install, and then we're doing some post-build actions. Now we're copying, as a post-build action, the built ear file to the RapidDeploy server. We're doing that from Jenkins, but RapidDeploy could just as easily pull that from Jenkins the other way around. We've just chosen to do it this way around because the order is correct. It's part of the flow. Then these are the RapidDeploy plugins. So the package build one, we give it a URL. That's the URL to the Midvision framework server, and an authentication token. And then we can see which projects are available on that server. At the moment there's just 2, WAS Deploy and WAS Provision. The Provision one we're not using today, but that would allow us to actually provision the binaries onto that target. We are going to create a jar file. We could choose a different extension. And then straight after that, we're going to deploy that project. So again, whenever you want to use the Midvision plugin, you need to give it the URL of the Midvision framework server. Again, the authentication token, same project. And here we're choosing the environment we're going to deploy to. And we're deploying to the development environment. We'll see this later when we look in the RapidDeploy console. We're just going to deploy that package to that environment. Okay, so let's go back to Jenkins. The test environment I'm not going to go into. It's very similar. There's just not the package step. Instead, it's just doing the deployment. We're going to the control project. Control project. Look at the configuration of this. You see, this is actually doing the promotion. So this is allowing these approvers to approve this product to go into the production environment. And I will just show you the production one, which is almost exactly the same as the test one. But this one just has the production service that it's going to. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go and make a code change. What I'm actually going to do is change the background colour from grey, which it was before, to a rather sickly green colour. Yellow colour. And I'm going to commit that to our SCM repository, SVN, so it's doing an SVN commit. And that will trigger a build in Jenkins. But it'll take it a moment because there's a 2-minute wait, of course. So while we're waiting for that, we're just going to look at the Websphere environments. This is the development environment. I'm just going to refresh this page. We can see in here there are no application servers. So the deployment will detect that there are no application servers, and it will bring this cell up to a desired state, which is to have one cluster with one application server in it. You can see there are no clusters. It will also deploy the enterprise application. Okay? The same is true of the test cell. I won't go into too much great detail here, but you can see there's no application server there. In the production cell, I'm going to leave those servers running because what I want to show you that is it's going to change the server. It's actually just going to say, well, that server's there, but I'm going to change the heap size. And at the moment, you need to make a note of this. We go into Java and Process Management. Don't worry if you're not familiar with the Websphere Console. Java Virtual Machine. You can see here that heap size is 256. Well, we'll see that when we do a deployment, we've set it back to 128. So we should see that heap size change. And here I'm going to show you the JPET store application running in production. And you can see that the background here is grey. So hopefully, as this deployment progresses, that's going to change to yellow. Right, so now I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Alex, who is going to go further on through the presentation. Alex?
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Alex Manley, I'm Vice President of Product Development here at MidVision. And what I'm going to show you is I'm going to go through a few of the concepts of RapidDeploy. So just to give you a better idea of the kind of, how the magic works of automating these deployments through RapidDeploy. So there's a few things that we just need to understand in RapidDeploy. First is a project, and a project is key to RapidDeploy, and it defines the set of steps that are going to happen on your target server. So it's an agnostic set of steps, so it's environment independent, and your steps can do anything. It can do OS level tasks, like validating file systems and users and space, down to application-specific tasks, such as what we're doing here, deploying configuration to Websphere, or we could have had a database task to deploy some schema, for example. We have a palette of tasks that you can choose from to mix and match what you actually want to achieve on your deployment. The next thing is the target server, where you're going to connect to. And we define server within the tool, and you define how you're going to connect to it. We mentioned earlier we have agent or agentless connection. So we have a Java remote agent you can store them, you can have running on your target server, or we can connect via SSH. It's very much up to the organisation about which is preferable. There's lots of blogs on the pros and cons of each. It's very much up to you how you want to connect. We also can define some cloud providers. So for example, in this demonstration, we're connecting to Amazon Web Service instances, and so through our tool, you can connect to AWS, pull down the instances you have running, and connect to those. So the next thing is the target environment, and that defines on the box you're connecting to, what are you actually configuring. So is it a queue manager, the application server, a database schema? So we have an environment, we define in the tool what you're prepared to deploy to. And the last thing is, once you've configured everything, you've configured the project, we then create a package which contains all of the resources and everything that's required. Just really a compressed file, which then is used to copy to the target server, and then you run the deployment on. So to go further into a project, what's the project and how's it made up? Well, the orchestration is an XML file, and it contains a set of tasks in the order that they're going to run on the target server. We also define the logging levels that are going to get returned to the RapidDeploy framework, which also get returned via the plugin onto the Jenkins console, so you can see the output of the deployments through both tools. We define the set of environment-specific configuration files for each environment. So you may have development, test, UAT, production. each environment has their own set of files, and they get packaged together within the project. And then you have a set of resources. So the resource may be your ear file, your WAR file, a database library, a URL library, or a URL to a file to get pulled down a resource. And then all of these project files are stored and backed up into an SCN system that have plugins into Git, SCN, ClearCase, and a few. And so basically we are treating your configuration as code, and it's all stored into source control so you can revert back to previous versions at any time. As I mentioned earlier, we create a package out of it, and then our packages are then stored on an artifact repository ready for deployment. Okay, so this little animation is just showing creating packages. So it takes all of the resources of the project that I mentioned earlier. Here we've got two environments, A and B, and then they're all compressed together into this package. And so now we've got package version 1, and it's ready to deploy to environment A and B, let's say your development and test environment. Now it's very easy to then go into the tool and clone one of those environments and create a new environment definition, environment C or UAT, for example. So you add a new environment, you can change the specific settings. It could be a port setting, it could be a search replace, a text search replace setting, and then that's added to the package, and you've got a new package which can now be deployed to your three environments. We've called this version 2. Now, as a deployer, all you need to know is the application you're deploying, the version of the package you're deploying, and the target server. Okay. And so when we do a deployment, we take the package, we copy it to the target server, and on the target server, the orchestration is run. And it does whatever you told it to do in the task, and then it is then deployed. It's being executed. So in this example, we're showing that package 1 runs on your target environment, and in our instance here, these are AWS instances, but it could be internal servers or cloud. But we can't deploy this package to version C because it doesn't have the configuration. And so then you can take back package 2, and then you can deploy that to all of the servers. The important thing I'm trying to get out here is you take one package, and it's the same package that you deploy to development, to test, UAT, and production. And you know what you deployed in production is the very same file and package that has been deployed to all of your previous environments, and it has not been tampered with. So now I'm going to pass back to Richard, and we'll see how far we're getting on with the deployments.
Thank you for that, Alex. That's very informative. So let's go back over here and have a look and see how we're getting on in Jenkins. So the development deployment's finished. The test deployment's going on because the development deployment was successful. So while that test deployment's going on, let's have a look at the development deployment. Let's have a look at the logs, see what it actually did. Have a look at the console output, have a look at the full log. So we can see that it's doing a standard Jenkins build. It's building the code. You can see here, it's doing compilation. It's running some tests, which is successful. And then we have a successful build. And now it's calling the RapidDeploy plugin. And it calls the plugin to package and then deploy. And here we see it's doing the package and then it's doing the deploy. And the deployment, we can see the logs. So the deployment is copying the files necessary over to the target server. So we can see it's doing some SCPs here. It's then doing some initialization tasks. And what we see here is all of these settings here with the @ are all data dictionary items. And these are what differentiates each environment from any other environment. So what we try to do with RapidDeploy, you don't have to do this, but what we try to do is say that what we want to do is distill down all of the differences between our environments into a set of data dictionary items, which ideally should be as small as possible. And therefore, whenever we want to compare what's different between environments, all we care about is those data dictionary items and how they change. Because every other file, every other thing that's done is using those data dictionary items. So this is actually doing some replacement of those dictionary items at deployment time. Then we're actually unzipping the archive that we're deploying. doing some replacements here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to expand the ear, and I'll show you in a bit what we're doing with that. We're basically expanding the ear, doing some search and replacements inside the ear to make some unique changes for a particular environment. And then we are stopping the Websphere cluster, which has a task to do that, and then we're performing the Websphere deployment. And in the Websphere deployment, you can see that we're setting a number of variables, we're setting some ports, some SSL settings. There are a lot of different settings that you can set here. We're not doing all of the various things, whether we enable HA, etc. These are all some Websphere specifics. Then we're noting that the cluster isn't there, starting the cluster, creating the cluster, starting the cluster, deploying the actual ear file, and then synchronizing. And then we run a local script runner task. And this is just demonstrating how you can, you might do this in Jenkins using a Selenium task or whatever. But what we're doing here is we're just effectively running some post-deployment tests. It's basically testing that through the application we can connect to the database. And then it runs a finalization test. And here we have a success, and that means that we're going to go on to the next deployment. So let's have a look now. So we can see that the test deployment has also succeeded. Now I'm not going to bother to look at the logs of that, but what I am going to do is I'm going to go to the test application, and I can see that I've now got the horrible yellow border that our managers have decided they want us to put into production. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, that's fine, that looks like it's worked. So we're going to go back to the Jenkins dashboard, and we're going to go into the control project. In the control project, we're going to say, okay, we don't like it, but our managers do, so we're going to approve that deployment into production. Now if we go back here, we can see that that's queued. And if we just go back into now the Websphere console, you can have a look here in the Websphere application server. You can see it's been auto-updated, but we can see now that that cluster has appeared, and it's online. We can also see that the Websphere Enterprise application is there, and we can see that the cluster is there. And the same should be the case for the test environment. Again, we have an online cluster, sorry, application server. We have an online cluster, and we have a deployed application. Okay, so whilst that production deployment is going, I guess it is at the moment, still queuing waiting, we will go into RapidDeploy. I haven't been into the console yet. So if we go into projects, we'll be able to see the two projects that we've got. Now, we haven't been using the Websphere 8 provision project up until now, but we could use that to provision the binaries onto the box. So what we're going to do now at the actual project, so this is the front page of the project. We can here specify where we're going to store our logs, description, a name, and whether we allow deployments. The orchestration is the main part. This is the task that we run through. So here we are running an initialization task. We're expanding the ear file before we deploy it. We're doing a search and replace, and this is where we're replacing the welcome to JPet store with the welcome to JPet store, followed by a data dictionary item, which is app name. And if we go on that pet store demo, just go back here, we can see that that's JPet store. So that's actually what it's replacing. Okay. Then what we're doing is we're collapsing that ear file back up again. We are stopping the cluster, and then we're doing a Websphere deployment. And you can see here, we're actually installing the application, installing JDBC, installing resource adapters, virtual hosts, and clusters. But actually, this represents a very small subset of what you can do. Just the install cluster alone might install, potentially hundreds of different configuration items. And you can pretty much do anything that you can do through the Websphere console, you can do through the tool. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this. The SCM repository, we know about that. Artifact repository, you can specify that. You can specify a build engine. You can specify a product. We're specifying Websphere 8.5. What I'm going to do now is go into environments and show you these are the three environments we're deploying. And in each one of these, I can show you we can set various properties. We can set XML search replace properties, so they'll go into XML files and do a search replace. We can set text search replace, which is what we're effectively doing on that previous panel I showed you, where we're replacing some text with other text. We can set environment variables. We have the concept of libraries and external resources. But the really important point here is the data dictionaries. So these are the things that define the differences between environments. Now actually, our three environments are all exactly the same, so we could have put these in a global dictionary file. We chose not to if we wanted to show all of these settings. The only ones we're really changing are the JPEG store EA test. And you remember I said before we're changing the heap size, so when it deploys to production, you should see that heap size change from 256 down to 128. So what I also wanted to show you in here is the packages. So we should be able to see the package that we built. So if we go into edit mode, and we can view one of the latest package, and we can see that we have just built this package. So this is Eastern Daylight Time, I guess, 11:26. I guess that's the time at the moment. Here in London it's 15:41. Then we can cancel out of there. And what we can also do is we can compare this package with a previous package. And we have some various plugins for this. I'm going to use a Beyond Compare plugin to do this. Okay, so it takes a moment to start. What we can do, I need to just change what we're comparing. We're not interested in timestamps because obviously that will be different. So what we can see here is if we go into the manifest, we can see that the version of the package has changed. We can see the date that it was created has changed. We can go into J2EE, the JPEG store application, the WAR file, CSS. We can see that change we made some time ago to change that background color. Okay, so let's go back into the Jenkins dashboard. Okay, so that's currently still deploying. So if in RapidDeploy we show executing jobs, we can see this job running. We can see it's doing the Websphere deployment. It took a little longer than I expected to actually kick off. And we can see this actually running in real time. It's nearly finished. It's just starting the cluster up at the moment. And as soon as that started up the cluster, we'll be able to see it. While we're waiting, I will just show you something else that we can see. Is we can look at what this environment looks like. So this is environment visualization. And this will show us for the CloudBees WAS deploy. You can see here we've got the CloudBees WAS deploy project deploying to 3 target servers. These are all AWS servers running in the cloud. They're all running Red Hat Enterprise Linux 64. They're all running a version of WebSphere 8008. Each cluster is also running 8008. This is referring to the deployment manager, and this is referring to the node. And then we can see which version is deployed. So it's 16.16, and this one is still showing 15 prod because it hasn't quite finished. So here we're seeing the 16 deployed, 11.26, and here. So if we go back to Jenkins, just refresh that page. That has now just completed. We go into the demo. You should be able to click on the production application and it's the pet store. And there we are. Sorry, I had to refresh my cache. You can see we've got the lovely yellow surround. Okay, so that's the end of the demo. What I can actually just show you, if I've just got 1 minute left, I think, is just, if we just refresh this page, I also wanted to show you this configuration item changing. So if we go down to Java Process Management, Process Definition, Java Virtual Machine, we can see that that has now changed back to 128. So that's the end of the demo. If we just go back to the presentation, thank you all for attending. Hopefully you've seen there that we have used Jenkins release pipelines in conjunction with RapidDeploy to create a set of deployments to development, test and production with an approval step in between. We've not only deployed the application code, we've made some changes to the application code, we've also deployed configuration and showed how if the environment isn't there, this will build out the environment as part of that deployment. I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'm just going to pass it back now to Rupert. Thanks.
Thanks, Richard. And thanks, Mark and Alex, for today's presentation. Thanks, everyone, for joining. As I said earlier, this webinar has been recorded, and a link together with slides will be sent to you by email after the presentation. We'd love to hear from you with any questions, feedback, comments, and we will get back to you on responses to those shortly after. One last thing, the RapidDeploy plugin for Jenkins can be downloaded from the URL on this slide, and as I say, we will email those to you. And that's it. Thanks very much for listening, and thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.